A sales strategist coming at you directly from the Melbourne studio. And today I'm joined by a special guest, and his name's Darrell Hardidge. And I'll introduce you just in a second, Darrell, but welcome.
Thank you.
But yeah, wherever you are around the world, today we're going to be talking about sales process and customer experience and where they merge together. But before we get there, I just want to introduce Darrell. So Darrell is the founder and CEO of Seguity, which is a specialist company that helps businesses understand what creates unshakable loyalty, and who doesn't want that? Darrell is the innovator of the Service Excellence Index called Appreciation Certified, and Seguity instructs businesses on how to understand the real risk and value of their customer base. Now, Darrell and his team at Seguity have interviewed over 550,000 end-use customers. Holy shit, that sounds like a few, Darrell.
A few phone calls.
From hundreds of companies, and have identified the critical drivers behind what creates a number one company and a number one team. The information curated and analysed from over 10 years of phone-based customer research has enabled a highly predictable process to ensure team culture is grounded in the most profound principles that define optimal performance. So this is all pretty good, Darrell, but the Seguity team has reinvented the process of measuring company goodwill and mergers and acquisitions, and understanding the value of customer loyalty and the likelihood of return business. Customer experience is a critical factor in revenue security, leadership, and culture assessment, and a vital component often missing in the due diligence process. CX Assurance offers an outside-in review of business processes and provides an accurate measurement of customer loyalty. Whoa, you haven't stuffed around, Darrell. And on top of that, you've written two books, one of which is called The Client Revolution, and the other one,
The 10 Commandments of Client Appreciation.
I don't believe you've given me a copy of that yet, Dazzling, but that'll happen.
I'll have to do.
But, mate, so welcome.
Great.
Really want to give our listeners and the people coming in, good morning, Daniel, some value today. So let's start with customer experience. And, you know, why is customer experience important?
Well, it's basically what you get. I mean, every time you buy, you deal with a business. And we're not talking about necessarily buying a pizza. We're talking about, major business processes and so on, or high value transactions as our market. But every touch point I deal with in your company provides an experience to me. And how great is that experience? And the primary objective is to make sure that every customer touch point is a great experience. And this is where a lot of businesses, not necessarily from intention, they're just not aware of it, that they miss these critical points, because the people that also work in those roles, and this is another key thing, is they don't actually have as part of their job description that they're in the customer experience role, where everybody should be. Very, very clear of that, because whether I get your invoice or delivery or, call up for help, tech support or something like that, every time I touch your company, you're delivering an experience to me. And we need to make sure that every part of our organization, the whole journey of the customer, is always a great one. Not just, the sales process, if it's a really crap sales process, I don't buy off you. So, with what you're doing with people is getting so many things right to set up a successful sale. And what's critical is the customer experience process has what we see as one primary objective, and that primary objective is to fulfill the promise that was made right at the start when I decided to get rid of our other supplier and choose your company and trust you. Because, I was saying earlier, I don't buy off you, and then just as we're signing the contract, you say to me, by the way, make sure you check your invoice. We're copying things up in the invoice, in the accounts receivable, and our new couriers, they're cheap, but they're pretty rough. So check that and it should be fine. I mean, you always will say in the sales process, if I ask you questions about that, you'll say, oh no, it's all good, because you can't say it's not. If you say, oh, sorry, stock control, we don't have much at the moment. So, of course, the expectation is that every part of the business is going to be great. Otherwise, you wouldn't get the sale. But the challenge is that very few companies have got an understanding in the culture of the organisation that they are always fulfilling that promise that was made in the sale process. And they're always got to be seen to supporting what the salesperson said to fulfill the integrity of the whole reason why we chose your company.
I guess it's an interesting concept, because every business out there or most businesses out there know about marketing and know advertising and marketing to bring the leads in. And then it's a matter of, okay, now we sell them the product. And so, great. So we've sold them the product. So most companies will think, great, okay, so that's it. Now, a lot of people would have heard of customer experience and customer satisfaction, but they don't actually give it any horsepower. So for the viewers and the listeners out there, what can they do to, like, firstly, how do you measure customer experience? And then how do you provide it? Because most people would have no idea. We hear about it, but it's kind of, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, we know we should do it, but what is it?
Well, customer experience actually has a process of a very reliable, proven process of having metrics to it. You must measure it, and you can't assume it. And a lot of companies make this fatal mistake that they look at it and think, well, if we're not losing any customers, we must be doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the metric. And also it's like, well, we get plenty of word of mouth, so we must be doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's often reflecting, that is, they are providing a good job. But you never know what your competitors are doing and who's knocking on the door and what kind of deals are out there. So customer experience has got to be something that's measured, and rarely is it a KPI in a business. Yet when you think about it, the only reason why you have really high degrees of loyalty and not from the customers that pick the eyes out of your product and pay their bills late.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about those premium customers that you love, those ones you think, oh, we could just have more of these, right? Those people, the reason why you've got them is it's a reflection of the fact that all those things are working. But then when we do lots of research, we will find we've got groups of the customer base that are very happy and other groups that are really unhappy. And you think, well, what's going on here? They're dealing with the same team and the same company. What's the difference and the breakdown? And often it can be things like different product lines,
mm-hmm.
different territories or states, different account managers or departments looking after them. There's a variation there. Sometimes it's a complexity of the customer that you haven't mapped your processes that you deal with a small business different to a large business. So a lot of people, they just put customer experience into this, if they're coming back, it's got to be working. But to really optimize revenue, especially, and we look at this from what we call under-leveraged customers. So often you'll have customers sitting in your business and they're only buying half of you what they should. And yet other ones will be buying everything that they can from you because they're a smaller business. But it's making sure that you're getting optimal revenue out of every customer. Because the more you can do that, then you put less stress on the marketing to keep, basically, you don't have to keep bringing them in the front gate all the time if they leave out the back gate. So the critical part of measuring customer experience is it's the result of everything that goes on in your business. So we call it the one number. So when we do metrics for companies, we bring it back to one number and we say that one number sits right in the middle because it reflects everything. It reflects value, it reflects communication, it reflects how I feel about you. I'm going to refer you to my mates. It reflects my intention of coming back and making sure that you can put measurements on warehouse delivery, communication. If you've got account managers, how well they're doing. If you've got help desk or tech support, whatever it may be, how well they're doing. And a big one for a lot of businesses is their finance department.
Mm-hmm.
So often we see in data where they're giving them an average score of 8 out of 10. And we'll talk about that. We ask, well, okay, that's not an optimal score. What's the most important improvement? And so, let's just wish they got their invoices right. I'm always having to challenge. I can't trust the invoices. I've got to check them. They're either overcharging or putting too much on the order or missing stuff. And you always got to deal with them, and they're really frustrating. And then when we go back to those companies and I'm reporting back in, I'll say, well, what's the training you've given your accounts receivable people? Because sometimes they're quite big teams. And I say, what do you mean? So, well, what customer experience, customer service training have you given to your accounts receivable? I go, well, we don't. It's not required. If you want to lose a client, nothing pisses people off faster than an argument over money. And if you keep overcharging me and you keep getting that wrong, I'm going to go somewhere else. You could get everything else right. All the other touch points could be working well. But if I'm overcharged all the time, I'll leave.
So you mentioned something just before about an 8 out of 10 experience. And I know you work on 8 out of 10. And I've had a couple of, I talked to some of my customers about customer experience and why that's important. But I assume, so when you're doing the metrics, if you get 7, 8 out of 10s, you're going back to the company and going, sweet, great job.
Yeah.
Never?
Never. Satisfaction's dead. And this is the interesting thing, right? Because, even every year, I think it's around February, one of the big researchers, Roy Morgan, they put out the annual Customer Satisfaction Awards.
Mm-hmm.
I always find that quite intriguing because, why would you reward the greatest companies with an award called Satisfied? Because we really know if you get satisfied, it's not really cutting it, right? So that, you don't want to be told that, do you? So the whole thing is that satisfaction in its essence is just giving people what they paid for. It's fulfilling the expectations. And if you want to have what we call unshakable loyalty, that means no one gets on your turf. The competitors just give up. You don't do that with satisfaction because satisfaction is a head connection. It's like got stock, delivered on time, generally good product. It's like a beige cardigan. It works, but it's not that exciting. So what you've got to do is know what optimal is. An optimal is 10 out of 10. An optimal customer experience reflecting everything I do with your company. When I give you a 10 out of 10 score, it's way beyond satisfaction. And that's what we call customer appreciation. Because appreciation.
So sorry, but are you saying that everyone out there should be achieving a 10 out of 10?
As opposed to what?
As opposed to an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10.
Well, think of it this way. Imagine you're doing a big purchase, Martin, right? And you think, this is a lot of money. And the person says to you, look, Martin, welcome aboard. I can assure you of an 8 out of 10 experience. What are you going to be thinking? Well,
where's the other two?
What's missing?
Yeah, right.
That means I'm going to be generally okay with it, but there's going to be some things that'll probably piss me off. So we don't say that, right? But the reality is that every business, every business we work with, because it's only good companies that care enough anyway to work with us, but we always have a percentage of a market that gives that optimal 10 out of 10 experience. And those people, when they talk about their experience, they rave about it. And they're truly appreciative of all the things this company does for them. And they'll often talk about how they've backed them and, gone above and beyond the call of duty and everything else where they just couldn't believe what they did to help them out in a tough situation or whatever it may be. And as a result of that, it's a human connection where we go, well, I really appreciate that massive effort you made. I'm not going to go anywhere else. I would be disrespectful and I'd be a bit of a bum if I now go to the competitor for a cheaper price after you bent over backwards to go above and beyond to serve me. And so these are the things that we've got to get through the team to know that just giving people what they expected does not fulfill the promise. We don't promise average. We promise that we're going to be the best supplier. Leave that company, come to us. We're going to be the best. But then you've got to make sure that you can predictably show me how that's going to happen.
Right. So that's when it falls down, though. So because as salespeople, it's going to be great. And then we often speak about the marketing. We were talking earlier about sales and marketing. So the touch point for sales and marketing is when the lead is generated and the salesperson contacts there's contact for the first time. Yes. Sales comes in. And then from a sales perspective, what we're talking about is once the sale is done, that's when the customer experience kicks in. And I think we addressed something that I think was really interesting. It'll be interesting to the viewers, was around account manager, the title of account manager, because when we're talking, because so many people are reluctant to sell, a lot of salesmen have disappeared. They're now business development managers or account managers. From your perspective, though, what's an account manager?
Look, the way we look at it, we measure this because we have clients that have sales process. So we measure the performance of the onboarding process, the sale, and how what was promised and how well are we delivering that. And then we also have clients that have account managers. One of them we just did recently, 26 account managers. And so every one of those account managers are responsible for continuously delivering an optimal experience. That's how we define it. So therefore, we're getting feedback on how well they're making sure that they're holding all the glue together. So if my delivery is wrong, or I need product information, or whatever it may be, you want to avoid them having to go to the salesperson because you want them to be out, scouring the landscape for new business and growing the company. You don't want to bog them down with questions, and often they won't know the answer because it's not their role. So the account managers are that intermediary that always holds everything right, so you don't get frustrated and so on, because sometimes you might ring up and ask a question and the person who answers the phone call can't answer the question, don't know who to deal with, and therefore it gets lost. And a simple example, we mapped a process recently with a company, and they had a customer that made an inquiry, and it took 6 weeks for it to go around the business to get the answer.
Yeah, wow.
The answer took 20 minutes, but it took 6 weeks to get it. And that's because in this particular case, there was no one responsible for making sure that all the connections work. So account management definitely last year with COVID, because we had some clients and they were all looking at, everyone was panicking around revenue and that sort of thing. And our message was clear: do not reduce account management. If anything, increase it. Don't cut money there, because that is the critical part that makes sure that you can keep on top of what's going on. And we actually put a whole range of questions together, and we gave to our clients and said, make sure your account managers document the answers to these questions. And they were things like from their market, how are you going? Do you see your business growing, staying the same, or shrinking? Because if the business was shrinking, then we know we've got to look at how do we protect revenue and how do we make sure that we've got accounts right. Because if they're shrinking, we've got to make sure our debt's okay. If they're growing, how do we make sure that we keep the others out? And so the account managers, in doing this process, raised their level of engagement with people, because now they were seen as not just an account manager, but someone who was genuinely interested in my business and there to help me. And so when they do that well, what it does is I'll talk to my mates, because I bought from you, you sold it to me, you made this big promise, I've been handed over, everyone respects that promise, the account manager protects the relationship, and whenever I need help, I just go to them and they just do everything beautifully for me. I'm going to tell my mates, and I'll either refer them to the account manager, and maybe they can do the sale, he or she can do the sale, or I'll reflect back to the salesperson. And then you've got this perfect loop to say, well, you referred to us from Martin because he's very happy, and the sale's done, right? So account management is got to be seen as protecting the whole journey of customer experience.
Great. So let's start somewhere. So we've got people listening in thinking about, hey, look, this is great, Darrell. I understand the concept of 10 out of 10, got it. But what can we do? So what if you were to give people, what's one action that a business could start with today that will set them on the journey of, I think most businesses would understand the value of customer satisfaction or customer experience. But what's the one thing a business could do right now today, as soon as we're off the thing, that would make them go, okay, now I'm one step closer? What is it?
Look, a couple of things here. Rule number one, don't assume you're doing a great job. In fact, one of our clients gave us a great insight a few years ago. When we were first kicking off, he said, our measurement of a great customer experience is we haven't got a loyal customer until they've referred a friend. Because when they've referred someone to us, they're putting their own integrity on the line to recommend us. Now we know we're solid. So you've got to look at a couple of things. If you're losing customers, and a lot of people, when they lose a customer, do nothing about it. And in fact, we did research on lost business. What you've got to do with that is basically have the balls to ring them up. Don't send them an email. Ring them up and have a chat. Face-to-face can be confrontational. Just a phone call. Say, look, I'm really sorry, that you've moved on, and respect your decision. It would really help us if you could give us a few minutes just to ask you where we went wrong. Where did we fail you? We want to make sure we fix this. And most people will tell you, well, I left because of A, B, and C. So straight away, that's a red flag to go, well, that's a touch point in the business. What's wrong with it? And the big thing is that what this reflects is you've got to be able to map out all the critical touch points in your customer journey. Because what often happens is we've got our marketing, we've got all our key points in the sale process, we're mapping all the sale process, we get the contract and then we hand it over and then we don't map it anymore. So what everybody needs to do is map out their customer experience process. And if they're a big business, then they've got key people responsible for that.
So when you say map it out, I understand, but sales is about a process as well. So map out your sales process. So map out your customer experience process. So what are the key touch points in customer experience?
Well, what you've got to do is you've got to think, okay, I got the order. So then what happens next? So the salesperson's emailed me an order. It's the internal process. So who takes care of that? What's their process to make sure that order's fulfilled? and then it gets passed on to somebody else, or it might be in a service-based business. So you've got to look at it. It should be pretty easy. If they can't work this out, they've got a bigger problem. So you might have 6 critical touch points. You might have more. Depends on the complexity of the business. But it's working out what are those things, and then making sure that have we designed it for an optimal experience. And quite often this is where the breakdown occurs. And you know, simple things like delivery. You can get everything right, and then the delivery's stuffed up and it's broken, or it's sent to the wrong place. You've got to go down the road and pick it up because they can't find you and whatever else. And often that happens because the bean counters go, oh, we can increase margin by using a cheaper courier. This is amazing how often this happens. We've got logistics clients that they specialize in making sure that they nurture and hold that relationship so that they see their role as a courier and their premium prices. And they often say to people when they go, oh, you're more expensive than the others, they go, yeah, of course we are, because we have one primary objective: to fulfill the promise that you sold. And we will make sure it's signed off. We'll make sure it's not broken. We'll make sure whatever it is that's 10 out of 10 for your delivery, we will learn that from you and train our people.
To fulfill the promise you sold. And this is something that we were talking about off camera earlier on.
Yeah.
When you were saying that the customer experience is fulfilling the promise that the salesperson made at the start. That's all it is.
In a simple term, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it would be not only fulfilling it, but exceeding it.
Exceeding it. Well, fulfilling it's satisfaction. Exceeding is appreciation. And so if you want unshakable loyalty, it doesn't exist in satisfaction. And so every one of our clients has a simple mantra, and we say to them, ban the word satisfaction. If people, we had one that had the $2 rule, they called it. If anyone mentioned satisfaction, they put $2 in the jar and went to a charity.
I love it.
I'll satisfy customer, $2. We don't do satisfaction here. That's just being the same as everyone else and promising that we'll just do what you ask for, right? So appreciation is an easier one to understand because every one of us are loyal to a business. And, you know, it's simple. You can look at all of your credit card receipts, for example, and I could look at it and I could pick out certain businesses and say, I can get that cheaper for you. And a lot of people go, I don't want cheap, like especially with my wife, for example. I tried it one day and I went, geez, you know, she came home with a lovely haircut and everything else. And it was over $300. Right? And I thought I'd play with it. And I said, geez, I can get a much cheaper one than that. Well, you know how well that conversation went. But the thing is, why does she pay premium price? Because she loves the experience. The haircut's great, but it's the experience she gets. And so we all pay a premium to have that experience where we feel special, where we feel respected, and most importantly, where we're known and they know the kids and the dog and everything else, right? So we all have our own examples of what appreciation feels like. And it's critical that we make sure that we all do that same thing for our market so that our customers appreciate us in that same way. And that's where you get the optimal 10 out of 10 and where, you know, the benefits of 10 out of 10 are just phenomenal. Simple data. We mapped out, analysed just under 75,000 surveys a little while ago. And those that scored 10 out of 10 versus those that scored 8 out of 10, right? Some crazy stuff. The 10 out of 10s referred 6 times more, not will you, have you, 6 times more than 8 out of 10s. 6 times more.
So when you're saying referral, because a referral is an extremely powerful way to generate sales.
Best marketing in the world.
Absolutely. And a lot of the people that I work with at the sales strategist, they're at, hey, look, how do we get more referrals? So, and I always come back, hey, look, so what are your 10 out of 10 customers? Now, everyone that I deal with thinks they have a 10 out of 10 customer, but how can they be sure?
Well, you got to measure it.
Yeah.
Can't assume it. And look, a simple way is, of course, if someone gives you a referral, then you can be pretty safe knowing that you're at least a 9 out of 10 because you don't see, here's the thing, Martin. If you've dealt with a company and they're a bit hit and miss, right? Let's say you've got a customer of yours that you don't want to lose. And they say to you, Martin, I'm really sick of this supplier. Who do you use? You'll be thinking, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll recommend this one because if they cock it up, it reflects me.
Correct.
So you might say, look, we use company A, but I don't know if I'm that happy with them. So you're going to give yourself a get out of jail card because you let them check it out and assess for yourself. You don't want to put your reputation on the line. But if you've got someone that you want to help and you've got a 10 out of 10 supplier that you love dealing with, you won't hesitate to put your reputation on the line and your personal integrity and say, I recommend this company, because you know you can trust that when they get that contact, and usually you do, this is the thing that's great. The 10 out of 10 customer will do the personal introduction. Might be an email, just introducing Martin to
well, we've done
this
that.
person. Yeah, well, exactly, we've done that. So when you do that, you know you hope that the person that you're referring, they go, wow, this has come from Martin. I've got to do everything to go way above and beyond, because if I just deliver satisfaction now, I've risked the new sale. I'm not going to get another referral. In fact, if we let them down, I could lose Martin. And that's happened many times.
This is gold. And so from a customer referral perspective, totally on board with that, because what's in it for the person doing the referral? It's about their status. Because if I give you a referral, and if I'm so happy with what and you use it and you get similar results, it's going to reflect positively on me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And see, the thing is that there's a real distinction to loyalty, right? A lot of people don't even think of this. And I run this in workshops. I say, why are you loyal? So we'll talk about their personal experience. It could be the restaurant, car mechanic, what doesn't matter what it is. Why are you loyal? Oh, because of this. No, but why? And why did you refer? And the reason why we're really loyal at the core of it is, in a positive way, a very selfish reason. See, you can think about, it might be a restaurant that you love going to. And if you drive past and see it's closed, you think, oh, they've gone. Well, what a shame.
Yeah, that happens. It pisses me off.
It's pissing you off because now I've got to find someone else.
Correct.
What an inconvenience.
I trust them. I want to go there. I like their food.
Yeah.
I like the experience. Correct.
Yeah.
Been there.
So and if they said to you, and you went there for dinner, I went, geez, Martin, we're on the edge. We're about to go. COVID's killed us. You'll be thinking, who can I recommend? I don't want you to leave. I want to go to your place to bring my family and friends because I love the service. So I've got my own selfish reasons for you to stay in business.
Well, not only that, I'd be prepared to pay more. I'd say to them, hey, look, that $25 Parmigiana, I'll give you 50.
Yeah. But if it's a business you're satisfied with, what do you think?
I'll just leave and
you go, oh, it's gone. I better find another one.
Yeah.
You won't even give it a second thought, right? So when you are exceptional in service experience, exceptional, your customers will protect you. They won't even necessarily be consciously aware of it. They will do everything to keep you in business because they need you to be there for their own reasons.
Yeah, right.
Whether it's in the supply chain, I need you to be there because you make sure you've got stuff to me on time that I can deliver my customers. In fact, if you're not 10 out of 10, I'm not 10 out of 10. So if you go and I've got to deal with a substandard, I'm going to potentially risk my own experience. So what have I got to do to keep you in business, mate? So this is the thing about appreciation, is that it's a two-way thing. Of course, the business appreciates the clients. But when the clients truly appreciate the business they pay money to, you're way beyond the world of satisfaction. In fact, when you get into this realm, and this is the thing you will love, you get to choose your clients. You get to sack the shitty ones that don't pay their bills on time and are rude and disrespectful to your team. You just go, you know what, I'm gonna just give my competitors more trouble. Now I'm going to send you to them. And so you free up the space for high quality clients, and you get to choose. You almost do a due diligence on, and this is where you see it in the optimal standard. I know we've talked about this, where you've got people that say, well, we can't afford many new customers. We can't afford it. We can't handle it. We don't have the capacity for more business. And so, what a terrible situation. You either sack the ones you don't want or you put your prices up.
Brilliant.
You're not chasing, right?
Brilliant. And, anyone that's listening, prize framing, and this is something that selecting your clients, prize framing, all this sort of stuff is something that is so critical in business today. But I'm, on behalf of the many small to medium startups, solopreneurs, companies out there that might only have a few employees. This is great, Darrell, but we're fucking flat out every day, doing our marketing, getting our sales, doing everything else. Now you're telling us we have to worry about customer experience as well. How the hell do we fit it all in?
Well, if you don't, you're going to stay small. How do you feel about that? That's okay if you want to be. But the thing with this is that if you want to grow your business and you want to bring people into your team so that you can start to leverage resources and provide this, service standards, right, and get the job done. Well, if you don't map it out so that it works for you predictably well, how are you going to bring someone else in? So what I think about that is map out the critical touch points in your process. You're doing it anyway. So map it out. And then what are the things that you know you must get right? And you pretty much know, because when you haven't got it right, you had a complaint. Right? So it's not that hard. This is not rocket science, but you've got to draw it. Don't do it in your head. It's a simple, just do a touch point diagram. And so it's like an arrow, like a fishbone graph with all the, key elements of the business. And then what are they to be 10 out of 10 with? I've got a template. You can send it out. People ask for it, we'll send it out.
Brilliant.
But the thing with it is that you map that out and you list it, and then you create the job description for that role. So when you hire someone, you say, here's what you need to do, because you're a critical part of the customer experience journey. And the other thing is that where people make mistakes is they hire people from experience. So I want, whatever it is, whatever role, I'll hire someone with that experience. Well, great. But first of all, you've got to make sure that how they were trained, was that a company that was happy with satisfaction and near enough's good enough? Because if they're being trained to near enough's good enough, that's what they bring to your business now. So if you can't map out excellence, how can you ever expect that?
I love this, because part of my role is to engage the fact that in business, everyone sells. So everyone's in sales, right? But this is such a both simple but very powerful way to go, because the guy who is packing the spare part to send out, who thinks, I'm not in sales, well, actually you are. You're a very important part of the customer experience, because if you don't do your job, we might lose a customer, and then the sales guy is back out on the road trying to fill up the pipeline again.
Yeah, well, great example. And just the other thing too, you said everyone's in the sales process, right? Everyone's also in the customer experience process. And they both work in perfect synergy together. And they kind of at different times pop up to be more important. So of course the sales process is critical at the very start. We've got to get it, right? And then the customer experience is to make sure we never lose it. And then to provide such a great experience that it flows back to the sales process with a referral. And we just keep, one goes ahead of the other at the perfect time, right? So, these are the things that have got to always be looked at. But the other thing that's really important with this is to make sure that customer experience is the number one job title on the job list. And so back to the delivery thing, we had a client a few years back, and they had over 50 retail stores and a warehouse for online. And one of the complaints that was coming up from people was delivery's wrong, broken, damaged stock and a wrong address and all kinds of stuff. And so when we went back and looked at this, because this was one of the critical touch points, and the warehouse manager was he was one of the key executive team, leadership team. So, and he was saying, it's just a nightmare. We've had nothing but trouble here. And so all we did, we learned this from someone else. They gave there's 4 people in the warehouse. So they all had a card. And this card basically said, hi, I'm Darrell. I'm the person who's completely responsible for your order. I have checked it, I've picked the stock, and I've packed it, and I've ensured that it's addressed to the correct location. If there's anything wrong with your order, please call this number. And that was the number of the warehouse manager. They eliminated the problem, and they removed 2 people.
Love it.
Because now, and then what they did to make sure the cards went in, they put this and go to a website to register for a monthly price, which was some free stock. So they're like, we'll make sure the cards go in. And they were making sure these cards went in. So now I'm packing the orders like, if I stuff this up, you're going to ring the boss and say, and I've just given you a card to say I'll be responsible. And what happened there was 2 people went, I'm not doing this. And I went, great, because they were the problem.
So that's key performance indicator in action right there. Right, I love that.
Responsibility to the person packing a box.
I love that.
They're responsible for 10 out of 10.
Fantastic.
And that's how we always run it.
It's funny because I'm thinking back 30 years. And sometimes you remember an experience that you had, right?
Of course.
And I remember when I first started dealing with an overseas company and we gave them the first order. This was back in the snail mail days.
Yep.
But I remember getting a card from them about a month after we'd done the first transaction. Hi, Martin. Just wanted to thank you very much for your on-time payment.
Wow.
And I'm going, 30 years later, I still remember that.
That's accounts receivable being in the customer experience business.
Right? That was cool.
Very cool.
And I still remember it.
And so did you keep paying their bill on time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Because I want, weirdly enough, and we're not talking chump change, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a transaction.
I remember, yeah.
But I wanted to get that letter every month.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't cost them, what, 25 cents for a stamp?
30 years later, still talking about it.
Still talking about it.
And
Absolutely.
It's a great point, because the thing is that often, see, you got to have it this way. You have to get to 8 out of 10 satisfaction or you're finished. You just got to, that's the starting line. So as we say, when it comes to being number one, there is no finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, 10 out of 10, optimal experience. It's never, ever finished. You've got to keep going all the time to make sure you constantly exceed that expectation. And these are the simple things, that it's the little 1%ers that really matter. They're the ones we remember.
Yeah, nice. So we've got about 10 minutes to go, or 9 minutes to go on the chat, Darrell. So if anyone out there has any questions for Darrell about customer experience, customer loyalty, just whack it in the chat box, and we're more than happy to answer any questions you might have. We were talking earlier about, and I thought it was a good analogy, you were talking about now, because you're aware of this thing that happened March last year called a global pandemic.
Yeah,
and I know you moved out of the city, you cracked the shits. That's it. And we're talking about quarantining your customers in a big lead cage, and about how a customer experience can do that. So just relate that.
Look, it was very interesting, because our data very early on showed that the weakness in a lot of companies, this is in Melbourne especially when we're all locked up, communication was the critical factor. And what a lot of companies were doing was they were just defaulting to what they'd always done. This was where the account management factor really kicked in very powerfully. And so what we looked at was, what's the one thing that you can do that you can control, that should be very easy to do, and also will make sure you're as nimble as anything to adjust and change with whatever's going on with your client base, customer base, whatever you call it. And so that was just making sure that there was regular, planned communication. And we emphasized, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Don't send me an email. It's fine. That's definitely okay, of course. But pick up the phone. How are you going? How are things? Because
so many people avoid the fucking phone.
Oh, it's the cheapest thing in the world, most powerful thing.
I know, right?
Because the thing is, on the phone, and this is where, and we only do phone-based research. We will never, ever, ever do an email or an SMS research. That'll tell you what. You got no idea why. You get a 10 out of 10. Oh, your service is great. Fantastic. We love you. Oh, okay, that's what you think. But why? Well, how did we create that? Well, that's only from a dialogue, right? And that's why when we were putting these questions together for account managers and so on last year around the communication model, we're saying, don't you dare email us out. You pick up the phone and you call people, because you'll hear things. You'll pick up things. You'll hear the tone. You'll hear if they're stressed or not. And what often happened, we were getting some feedback from our market, was they'd say, when we called them, we discovered some of their stresses. And in some cases, we had clients that say, I know someone who can help. Like we were saying earlier, I know someone who can help you with that. So then they can refer their customer, someone that can help them, who does, because they're a 10 out of 10 and all, everything, good relationship. Now, how good do you look? You called me up because you cared. You listened to me. You understood my challenge. You went, I know who can help you, because the supplier I got now is crap. They helping me. I love it. I'm never leaving you.
Yeah. And you can actually make we've got a couple of questions coming through, but you can also make just because something stuffs up, that's a really good way to actually enhance a customer experience. Because some people run away. But we've got a question from Lisa. What about one-off experience? Is it a matter of gauging the CX by referral? So I happen to know Lisa's business. So Lisa has two businesses. One's called Style Capture. So she does professional portraiture. And she also has a wedding business. So both of those are kind of one-off. So what would you say to Lisa?
first of all, why are they one-offs? I mean, the marriage one, well, repeat business could take a while, could be good, but you probably want to plan it saying, I'll see you next time. Probably not so good. But look, portraiture is, especially if it's in business.
Business, so Lisa specialises in professional portraits for CEOs, salespeople, people like that.
So what about the whole team?
Mm-hmm.
And what about...
so how does Lisa measure her customer experience based on, she's saying here, is she measuring her customer experience by the amount of referrals she gets?
It's definitely an indication.
Right.
You bet. Look, if you're doing great work with this thing, Lisa, and you're getting referrals, then the thing I would say to you straight up is to go, let's say it's coming from you, Martin. Like, Martin, thank you so much for the referral. Can I please ask you why you gave me that referral? And what did you say to the person you're referring?
Yeah, so Lisa's specifically talking about the wedding stylist.
Okay, so the wedding stylist, get a referral, then what did you tell them?
Mm-hmm.
Because quite often, we can get the referral and we call the person up and, that's wonderful. It's the best marketing you can get, right? But if you understand why they referred, so before you talk to the person, call up the referrer and say, thank you so much for the referral. I so appreciate this. And just so I know, I want to give your friend a call. What did you tell them? I say, well, I talked about A, B, and C as being so good and better than the others. You've already got all the background of how to approach the sale, right? And you also know what they've said about you so that you can address that. And you also might notice what they've left out and they didn't say about you so that you can then know what to put into the conversation. Brilliant. Right?
So Marco is asking, what's the best way to start mapping out the CX experience and then getting the whole team on board?
Well, you start by looking at all the different roles you've got. So if you employ people in different roles, they're in a role for a reason. That's a customer touch point.
Mm-hmm.
Everything leads to customer experience. And so the way to look at this, you've got people that are directly responsible to the end user, and you've got people that are internal. So we call that the internal customer. So you've got the objective of 10 out of 10 for the marketplace, but everyone on the team must be 10 out of 10 for each other. You cannot get 10 out of 10 in the market if your team's like, oh, that's not my department, that's not my problem. That's project management or whatever. It's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody must be the custodian of customer experience and the custodian of 10 out of 10. So then you get people together and you say and you start with a simple question and you say, how would you explain, let's say you were to go on holidays or a long service leave for 3 months, I'm going to put a new person into your role. You want them to do an exceptional job like you are. So how would you explain what you do and how would you step out the process so that you know they predictably deliver a great experience? And then you just get your team together and they start writing it, just bullet points to start with. I do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You map out all the things that are critical to be done. And then you also go, and how do we make sure it's done to an operable standard? Because what we're looking for in a leadership perspective, from a leadership being a number one company, you've got these 3 critical distinctions to leadership. You've got theory plus experience plus prediction to get optimal results. So the theory is all the procedures and the processes, the documentation, the certifications, the qualifications, they're all part of the theory. The experience is what everybody has. So you can get someone out of university with a college degree, a university degree, doesn't mean they've got the theory, they've got no experience yet. Mm-hmm. So you can't predict an outcome, a quality outcome. So you've got to get all the theories right. Then you've got to make sure you've got the right people. Because quite often where customer experience breaks down is somebody's put into a role they're not trained to excel in.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to get the experience right. And this is where you get the key people in your business that are brilliant at customer experience, and you get them to be involved in mapping it out. So you want to have really tight processes, same as your sales process. You want to have great experience on the team because theory and experience enables a prediction of excellence. And when you don't predict a great 10 out of 10 experience, if you can only predictably deliver a 7 or an 8, you go, well, don't blame people. You go, have we got the right processes? And have we trained people properly? Have we mentored them properly? So you've got to get the theories right, the experience right, because at the end of the day, when I choose you, I'm buying a prediction. Ultimately, if I'm going to buy your company services, what am I buying? I'm buying the fact that you made a promise and you're going to deliver on that promise. That's a prediction. And if you're selling me a prediction of stuffing it up, well, I'm not going to buy. I'll buy once.
Love it.
So everybody's got to understand that they're in the customer experience role, and you ask them the question. So how would you explain that in what you know about our business? And these conversations sway between two things. They sway between, wow, I didn't realize you do all those things for the company. That's fantastic. Thank you. And holy shit, if that's what you think all that is required here, we've got a problem. So you see the big gaps in that. And you just start there and it all evolves.
Great, Darrell. So our time is up, but before we go, we were talking about, so there'll be listeners and people watching that want to engage and that actually want a bit more information. So we're all about increasing the customer experience for our customers today, Darrell. So what have you got that our listeners can download, get access to that might help them on this journey?
They just go to the website, security.com, or to my website, darrellhardidge.com.
So that I'll just type this in the chat box. So it's www. Whoops, it's just my non-compliant is coming through here. www.seguity.
www.seguity, SAGUITY.
Yep.
.com.
Just .com.
Yep. And scroll down. There's 2 white papers we produced. The Power of 10 out of 10, which really puts in some data that I talked about earlier. And the big one, you'll see the graph in there, and the other part with 10 out of 10, which smashed 8 out of 10, was wallet share. And we measure greater than 80%, which means when you're buying my product or service, you're giving at least 80% of all your business to me in this marketplace. So whatever it is I sell, I'm getting the bulk of all your orders. Because when we talk about wallet share, we want the bulk of the wallet. And the data there is phenomenal, the difference between the 10 out of 10 and 8 out of 10. So I won't read the numbers out. People can go read it. And then there's also one called the 5 business benefits of the Customer Appreciation Index. And this is defining what that measurement of 10 out of 10 is and all the benefits of doing that. So if people start there and they read that, because as we talk about, we want quality business, and quite frankly, we call it the give a shit factor. People don't really give a shit about 10 out of 10. They don't work with us. They don't pay the bill, right? But if you really care about delivering excellent service and being number one, then we are a very, very low cost investment in protecting future revenue. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, you put all this time, energy, and money in the sales process to bring them in the front gate. Customer experience is protecting the future revenue and generating referrals and organically growing your market. And you can only do that with an optimal experience. If you give satisfaction, you'll keep marketing and you'll keep rehashing and burning clients.
Brilliant.
Burning customers.
Darrell, it's been great. Great for you. Thanks for coming in this morning. And let's do it all again soon. To everybody out there in the digital world of social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, appreciate your attendance. Any questions? You've got www.seguity.com. You can contact Darrell through there, or you can come to me. Either way is fine. Thanks for your attendance. From my sales heart to yours. See you next week.
Thank you.